Source for news and information about the Knox County Democratic Party. I'm Michael Davis, and I'll be your host for today's program with Renee Hoyos, who's running for the 2nd U.S. Congress District for the state of Tennessee. And we're very happy to have you back with us here today, Renee. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so it's been quite an exciting year for you, I'm sure. Filing to run for U.S. Congress, winning the nomination in August, and now you're in the throes of the, I guess, the height of your campaign for the general election, which is coming up in November.
Yeah, it's been really a great ride. People don't tell you how much fun it is to run.
Well, good. I'm glad that that it is fun for you, because I can't imagine that it would be a great experience if it weren't. Getting to talk to people, getting to know the voters of this region of Tennessee, it has got to be incredibly rewarding a lot of the times.
It is, and you learn so much about what goes on here that you didn't know before.
Right. Okay. So Jimmy Duncan is retiring. This is the seat that you're gunning for here. He's the Republican that has held this seat for 30 years. Over that time, there's pretty much been just that Republican voice and just the voice of Jimmy Duncan there in the 2nd district. So what problems have we seen over that period of time, and what's going to be different with you in this seat?
Well, I think what we've seen is a real demographic shift in the district. Knoxville's changed, Maryville's changed. And after the election of 2016, a lot of people are now, as I like to say, off the bench and playing ball. You know, there's a lot more civic engagement now. People really want to find out what's going on in their community, and they really want to help out. And this was one of the ways I thought that I could help out, was running for Congress. Okay,
great. Great. So in that in particular, this is your first foray into elected office.
It is, yeah.
But you've been in the halls of politics before as the director of the Tennessee Clean Water Network.
That's right.
So did you ever think that you would actually file or throw your hat in the ring for this kind of a race?
No, I never thought I would. I never wanted to. I used to tell people, I want to be the one yelling at them. I don't want to be the one being yelled at. And so it is a really different mindset. And I think a lot of mindsets got changed after the 2016 election. So I'm, more willing. But I also see how people have failed their communities, how legislators have failed by not showing up, by not doing town halls, by not listening to what people are telling them, by I think a lot of us were dismissed and have been dismissed by our government officials, and I think we're just tired of it now. And I hope to not be that way when I'm in office. Okay.
So what are some of the particular issues that you want to hit the hardest, that you think that are, one, the motivating factors that got you off the bench, and some of the things that you're hearing from your constituents right now?
Well, overwhelmingly, it's healthcare.
Okay.
It's unaffordable, it's inaccessible. We have pharmaceutical pricing that's crazy out of control. Hospital closures are big in Tennessee. We have the highest number per capita of hospital closures in the country.
And several of those have happened in this district.
Yeah, not during this election cycle, but we did lose one. I believe it's in the 3rd district just a week or so ago. So, it's happening around us, and I'm really afraid that once we lose a hospital in a district, it's not just health outcomes that we lose, and we do lose those, but we also lose current jobs, and then manufacturers, companies don't want to locate where there's no hospital. And so we're not only crippling current economies, we're crippling future economies. So it's very important that we keep these hospitals open.
Right. I would totally agree with that. Growing up in a rural area, which I think may be one of the hospitals that we're talking about down in Polk County, when those community health centers and those small rural hospitals shut down, it's also an indicator to people that have been living there, that grew up there, that maybe you want to leave and find some other place too. It's hard to keep a hold of of your homegrown population when things around you, such as that contribute to the quality of life, like a hospital within a 30 minutes drive, are shutting down.
Right, and I hear that a lot in the rural communities. I want my family to stay here. And so I would like to create a situation that families can stay in their communities where they've grown up and where they have that good family unit, because it's really important to keep families intact with their networks. I just think it's better for the community overall.
Right, and on those lines, it seems like a lot of times that the rural areas and Democrats kind of miss each other. But it seems like that kind of policy, what you're talking about, making sure that the rural areas, even the suburban areas, still are able to hold on to the people that grew up there, through these quality of life things, through good economic opportunities, why isn't that message connecting? What are you seeing when you're out in those communities, and how do you get that message across?
Well, I talk to them about, they tell me what they want, and I try to make sure that I understand how I can get that for them. So a big thing in rural communities that they're facing now is the lack of broadband. And so working on trying to get good broadband out to these communities, I think is going to be really helpful to bring back industry, hopefully to reestablish hospitals, along with having expanded Medicaid.
Right.
That'd be great.
Would be.
Yeah. So, having broadband allows them to participate in the internet society, which they need to for jobs and for schooling. And so and then, you can do some remote healthcare if you have good broadband.
Yeah.
And so we could see clinics come back, which would be very important for these rural communities.
I think there would be a huge improvement there. I mean, I know in the practice of law, we're using telecommunications in ways that really open a lot of people up to services. I don't see any reason why it should be all that different with medicine. Of course, you have some obvious physical contact requirements in medicine, but not for every single thing, and not for certain points of care. So it does seem like bringing broadband to these rural areas is kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
So what particular ways do you see to work with industry and with other legislators and individual communities to get that on track?
Well, I think we could work with local power companies because they've got the infrastructure, they have the lines, they have the personnel, they have the equipment and training, and it could be income generating for these local power communities. So I think if we can hook them up with TVA, as Governor Bredesen has suggested, and we can have a way to get broadband out using a one dig strategy. So when they're repairing one line, they're just laying down broadband while they're doing it. Yeah.
Great. All right. So turning back to the race at hand, how are things going? What changes have you seen? What new obstacles or challenges have you seen from the primary versus the general?
Well, a lot of people ask me, how has your platform changed now that you're in the general? And it's kind of a disappointing question because I think people assume that you're going to move one way or the other, that's expected. And so I've been telling people nothing moves, nothing changes. The issues that were there in the primary are still the issues and the solutions that I have for the general. What has changed is I just don't see my opponent anywhere. I used to see Josh Williams everywhere, and I know he's working the crowd.
I can attest to that. Both of y'all were very active on the campaign trail.
Yeah, we were, and I just don't see Tim anywhere. He's not coming to forums. We've been invited to a number of forums, both in the primary and in the general. He only came to one forum in the primary.
One forum? One forum,
and there were about 6.
And since both of you received your nominations in August.
Right, and then we were seen together on WBIR, but that wasn't really a planned thing. We were told we were going to be on the show at the same time, but we didn't realize it was going to be sitting next to each other.
Okay.
And his campaign has indicated that that's probably all we're going to get. Although I believe that the Knox County CPA Association is having a forum with both of us there. So one forum, but we've had 5 or 6 requests, and he's just not responded to any of them.
Okay. That seems, if as a voter, as someone in the 2nd Congressional District, that's disappointing to me. I would like to see whatever the candidates are, like when you were in your primary, when so many other candidates were in their primaries, actually getting out and engaging with each other so that viewers can see, voters can see what these differences are, what the difference of approach to problems and questions are. So that is disappointing. Another thing that seems to be disappointing to me, Mr. Burchett hasn't released his tax returns, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
They asked me for mine and I coughed them right up. I got to tell you, they were uninteresting to the average reader. I'm sure I EZ'd last year, and the year before I had, just a few things to report. But I'm happy to divulge my tax returns for all the years I'll be in Congress. I'm happy to do that. I think it's important that when people ask for stuff like that, if you're going to be a public figure, then really your life's under a microscope,
right.
And you need to do what they want you to do,
right.
As long as it's appropriate, and it's very appropriate to see their tax returns.
Okay, and the tax return just seems to be another way to show that you're open about things, and why not, really?
Right. There's no reason to not.
Everything on that form should be legal, so.
Yeah, it was, and uninteresting.
Right. Okay. Along those lines, about people being able to trust who's in Congress, their elected officials. What's your stance on influence of money from PACs, money from specific industrial interests, other sorts of political interests when you're in office?
It's a real challenge, I think. And one of the things that I worked on in the primary, people would tell me, you have to take PAC money. There's just no way around it. And I always felt badly about that. That was one of the reasons, I was a little bit tentative, that and doing negative ads. They said, you have to do them. Well, in the primary, nobody offered me PAC money and I didn't take any, and I made it through the primary. And so we've extended that through the general. I'm not taking any PAC money. And on that WBIR show, I teased him a little bit. I said, hey, how about you don't take PAC money too, and we can have a fair fight? And he said to me, I'm going to take every dime, Renee. So there's a real difference between us there. I don't want to be beholden to a company or an organization that can come to me and say, yeah, well, I gave you a lot of money, and now you're going to vote the way I want you to vote. I just don't want to have that. I want to be able to say, I won my campaign with support from people mostly in the district, and it's to them that I am working, not necessarily a company or an industry.
Okay. So with that in mind, we're down to the last month of the campaign. I'm sure we've got plenty of motivated voters out there that want to help you get into office. What's the most important thing or the biggest way that they could help you right now?
Well, what we really need help in is canvassing and phone banking. And we're doing phone banking just about every night, canvassing a lot on the weekends. I think we do a couple of canvasses during the week, but once the time changes, we won't be doing it then. So certainly a lot of canvassing on the weekend. Putting yard signs up, telling your friends. And I've been telling everybody, look, make sure everyone in your network gets out to vote. And call them. Pick 10 people, pick 20 people. Make sure they get out to vote, because it's going to be all about turnout, I think, in this election.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, we've covered several things here. Any other things that you would like to add on issues? We've got just a plethora of issues out there, or any particular things that you want our viewers to know about you and the job that you'll do for them in Congress.
Well, if they're interested in any of my issues, you can certainly come to my website, hoyosforcongress.com, and there's a whole list of issues that are outlined there. And then, contact the campaign if you have any questions at all about the things that I speak of on the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
I can dive deep into a policy.
Well, we do have just about a minute left. I would like to ask you, what was the one, if there was one particular political issue that inspired you or really helped you make your decision to run for office? What was it and why?
Well, actually, I did 50 interviews, and I thought I'll be talked out. By interview 50, people will say, just don't bother. And you know what? Not one person said that to me. Everybody said, you should run. A couple of Republicans asked me to run as a moderate Republican, and I just felt like there was a lot of support for a new voice, because people are hungry for that now. Right.
Yeah, with everything going on with the hopeful wave of Democrats, and particularly a wave of women getting elected into office, this seems like a time to have a new voice, and you're representing both of those things, and very well. We wish you lots of luck with that.
Thanks so much.
Campaign.
Thank you.
All right, Renee, great having you on today. Everyone, Renee Hoyos, running for the 2nd District of the U.S. Congress for Tennessee. And please stay tuned with us. DTV continues with Jamie Ballinger in just a moment.